Salt air has a way of finding you before you ever step outside. A distinct and heavy sweetness that seeps through the cabin seems just as the engines begin their low, winding descent. It is not merely a smell, but a texture, a density that changes how the sunlight looks as it bends through the thick oval window. Below, the water is not just blue, but a deep, bruised indigo that seems to hold the stillness of the deep ocean, broken only by the white wake of a solitary ferry, cutting a slow line toward the harbor. The plain banks, a gentle tilt that presses my shoulder into the side of the seat, and the horizon corrects itself, leveling out into a haze of heat and limestone. We touch down with barely a tremor, the wheels finding the runway with a confident grip that slows the world from a blur to a steady, rolling pace. The roar of the wind drops away, replaced by the humming idle of the turbine, as we taxi toward the low building that waits in the distance. There is no rush here. The aircraft moves with the lethargy of the afternoon heat, turning slowly, pausing, then creeping forward again, until the final lurch brings us to a halt. The seatbelt sign dims. A collective exhale seems to move through the cabin, followed by the soft, mechanical clicks of buckles, releasing one by one. I remain seated for a moment, letting the stillness settle in my chest, listening to the shuffle of luggage and the murmur of quiet conversations. Standing up feels like unfolding a map. My legs stretch, grateful for the vertical space, and I retrieve my bag from the overhead bin. It has a reassuring weight, a solidity that anchors me to the ground. I join the slow procession, moving toward the front, a single line of travelers drifting like a sluggish river. We step across the threshold of the aircraft door, and the transition is immediate. The air in the jet bridge is warm and still. The floor here is different. A ribbed metal surface covered in a thin, industrial carpet that dampens every footstep. I walk slowly. The tunnel is long and suspended, a floating hallway between the sky and the earth. My shoes make a soft, scuffing sound against the weave of the carpet. There is a rhythm to it. Step, pause. Step, pause. The walls are translucent, offering muted glimpses of the tarmac below. But I keep my eyes forward, focusing on the gentle slope that leads down toward the terminal. This walkway seems to stretch out, prolonging the arrival. The slope creates a slight pull of gravity, urging me forward without effort. I adjust the strap of my bag on my shoulder. The fabric is coarse against my shirt. Down we go, the line of people moving in a synchronized silence, leaving the machine behind. We emerge from the tunnel into the wide, open space of the arrival hall. The floor changes instantly. The carpet gives way to large, polished tiles of pale gray stone. The sound of walking transforms. What was a muffled shuffle becomes a crisp, echoing tap. My shoes meet the stone, with a clear, defined contact. I set my rolling suitcase down. The wheels kiss the floor. I extend the handle, feeling it lock into place with a subtle click. Now begins the long walk through the concourse. The wheels of the suitcase hum against the smooth tiles. It is a continuous, low-frequency vibration that travels up the handle and into my palm. I focus entirely on the sensation. The floor is perfectly level, allowing the bag to glide with minimal resistance. Every few feet, the wheels cross a grout line, creating a rhythmic pulse. A soft thud-thud, then silence, then thud-thud. The hall is vast and filled with natural light that pours down from high windows. Dust motes dance in the beams, suspended in the cool, conditioned air. I walk past rows of empty chairs, their metal frames gleaming under the lights. The distance to the passport control booths is significant. A wide expanse of empty floor that invites a steady, meditative pace. My steps fall into cadence with the rolling bag. Left foot, right foot, the hum of the wheels. There is no need to navigate or make decisions. The path is a straight line, marked by the glossy reflection on the tiles. I watch the floor pass beneath me, noticing the subtle variations in the stone, the tiny flecks of quartz and mica trapped in the gray surface. The air here is cooler than the jet bridge. It brushes against my arms, a gentle current generated by silent vents high above. I breathe it in. It smells of polished glass and neutral soap, a clean, transient scent that belongs to no specific country, but to the universal space of travel. I approach a section of the floor where the tiling changes pattern, shifting from gray to a warmer beige. The sound of the wheels deepens slightly, the pitch dropping a fraction of an octave. I listen to this shift. It is a small detail, but in the quiet of the walk, it feels significant. The acoustic space of the hall amplifies these small sounds: the rustle of a jacket, the squeak of a rubber sole, the steady drone of the luggage. The queue for passport control is short and moves with a fluid, silent efficiency. I stand still for a moment, resting my hand on the top of my suitcase. The vibration stops. The stillness returns. I shift my weight from one leg to the other, feeling the firmness of the ground. It is good to be standing. The line advances. I take 3 steps forward. The wheels roll briefly. Hum, thud, stop. After the brief pause of the border check, the path continues. I walk through a set of frosted glass doors and into the baggage claim area. Here, the ceiling is lower, creating a more intimate, enclosed atmosphere. The floor changes again, this time to a durable, speckled linoleum. The suitcase glides even smoother here, the friction reduced to a whisper. I do not need to wait at the carousels. I bypass the revolving belts, watching them spin their endless loops. The black rubber slats of the conveyor belts move with a hypnotic repetition, snake-like and unending. I walk past them, following the green signs that point toward the exit. The final stretch of the interior walk leads through a long corridor lined with advertising boards, their colors bright but indistinct in my peripheral vision. I keep my focus on the exit doors ahead. They are made of clear glass, sliding open and closed with a soft pneumatic hiss. As I approach, the sensors detect my presence. The glass panels part smoothly. The cool air of the terminal washes against the warm air waiting outside, creating a turbulent threshold. I step through. The heat of the afternoon meets me instantly. It is not oppressive, but embracing, a dry Mediterranean warmth that smells of pine needles and sun-baked asphalt. The soundscape shifts from the hollow echo of the terminal to the wide, ambient texture of the outdoors. Cicadas are buzzing in the distance, a continuous static hiss that seems to emanate from the trees themselves. I walk to the curb. The pavement here is rougher, concrete mixed with pebbles. The suitcase wheels rumble now, a louder, grittier sound that shakes the handle in my grip. I lift the bag, carrying it the short distance to the waiting shuttle bus. The bus engine is idling, a deep, resonant purr that vibrates through the chassis. I climb the steps, the rubber treads gripping my shoes. The interior of the bus is cool, shielded by tinted windows that turn the bright afternoon into a mellow twilight. I find a seat near the window and settle in. The upholstery is a soft velour fabric worn smooth by thousands of passengers. The doors fold shut with a pneumatic sigh. The bus lurches forward, heavy and deliberate, swinging out of the airport loop and onto the main road. We pick up speed. The hum of the tires on the asphalt becomes a steady drone, a white noise that wraps around me like a blanket. I lean my head against the cool glass of the window. The vibration of the engine travels through the seat, a soothing massage that loosens the tension in my back. The landscape begins to roll by. We are moving along the coast now. To my left, the Adriatic Sea stretches out to the horizon, a flat sheet of shimmering calm. The water is a gradient of color, shifting from pale turquoise near the rocks to that deep, ink blue farther out. It looks heavy, like oil or liquid glass. We pass cliffs of white limestone, their faces sheer and jagged, cutting sharp lines against the blue sky. Green scrub brush clings to the rock face, defying gravity. Cypress trees stand like dark green exclamation points, their slender forms swaying slightly in the breeze. The motion of the bus is hypnotic. We wind around the curves of the coastal road, left then right. The bus leans into the turns. I watch the guardrail flash by, a continuous ribbon of silver. Sunlight flickers through the trees, creating a strobe effect on my closed eyelids. Warmth, shadow. Warmth, shadow. I do not look at a map. I do not check the time. I simply let the vehicle carry me. The destination is certain. The timeline is irrelevant. For now, there is only the motion, the hum of the engine, and the flashes of blue sea between the trees. The road begins to descend. The engine pitch changes, dropping to a lower gear to manage the slope. We are approaching the city, but not the modern sprawl. We are aiming for the stone heart of the place. The bus slows. The brakes hiss. We pull into a small plaza lined with oleander bushes. Their pink and white flowers, vivid against the gray stone. The engine cuts out, and silence rushes back in, filled only by the distant cry of a gull and the murmur of the sea. I step off the bus and onto the pavement of the pile gate. This is the entrance. The stone walls rise up before me, massive and ancient, blocking out the sky. They are the color of ivory and baked bread, warm and textured. I take the handle of my bag again. We pass under the stone archway, crossing the bridge where a moat once stood, now filled with a lush garden of orange trees and palms. The air here is cooler, shaded by the sheer height of the fortifications. Entering the old town is like stepping into a geode. The noise of the modern world vanishes, replaced by the unique acoustic signature of stone. Every sound echoes, voices, footsteps, the flutter of wings. The main street, the Straton, stretches out before me. The limestone pavement here is extraordinary. Centuries of shoes have polished it until it shines like marble. It reflects the buildings on either side, a mirror of pale stone. I begin to walk down this central artery. My suitcase wheels make a different sound here, a clattering, lively sound as they bounce over the shallow imperfections in the ancient paving. I slow my pace. The stones are slippery smooth under my soles. I have to walk with intention. Above, the sky is a narrow strip of blue, framed by the terracotta rooflines. Swallows dart back and forth across the gap, their high-pitched calls bouncing off the walls. They are the true owners of this city, circling the towers and diving into the hidden crevices of the masonry. I turn off the main street, entering a narrower alley. The light dims here, protected from the direct sun. The buildings lean and close, creating a canyon of shade. The air smells of laundry detergent and grilled fish, a domestic scent that feels welcoming. The alley begins to climb. Wide, shallow stairs made of the same pale stone lead upward. I lift my bag, carrying it by the side handle. The weight is good. It engages my muscles, grounding me in the physical effort of arrival. 1 step, 2 steps. The stone is worn in the center, dipped slightly where millions of feet have tread before mine. I place my feet in these hollows, following the path of history. I pause at a landing to catch my breath. The walls around me are rougher here, the mortar visible between the blocks. A cat, orange and white, sleeps on a windowsill, undisturbed by my presence. It opens one eye, watches me for a second, and then closes it again. I continue upward. The sounds of the main street have faded to a dull roar, like the sound of the ocean in a seashell. Here it is quiet. I reach a heavy wooden door, dark green paint peeling slightly to reveal the oak beneath. I retrieve a heavy iron key from my pocket. It feels cool and substantial. I slide it into the lock. It turns with a heavy, mechanical clunk, a sound of definitive closure. The door swings open. The apartment is cool and dim. The shutters are closed, barring the heat of the day. I step inside and close the door behind me. The latch clicks, sealing out the world. The silence here is absolute. It is a thick, resting silence. I leave my bag by the door. I do not unpack. That is a task for later. For now, I only need to stop. The floor is tiled in terracotta, cool against my feet. I walk across the room to the window and unlatch the shutters, pushing them open just an inch. A sliver of golden light slices across the floor, and with it comes the faint, rhythmic sound of the sea washing against the rocks far below. The room contains a simple wooden bed dressed in white linens. The fabric looks crisp, pulled tight across the mattress. I sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress is firm. I unlace my shoes, one by one, setting them quietly on the floor. My feet feel light, liberated from the weight of the journey. I swing my legs up and lie back. The pillow is cool against my neck. I stare up at the ceiling, watching the play of shadows in the corner where the light from the shutters doesn't quite reach. My body feels heavy, sinking into the support of the mattress. The sensation of motion, the vibration of the plane, the sway of the bus, the rhythm of the walk still lingers in my inner ear, a phantom rocking that gently lulls me. I close my eyes. The scent of the room is clean, a mixture of sun-dried cotton and faint lavender. The sound of the sea is a steady, slow respiration outside the window. In and out, in and out. The stone walls of the city are holding the heat of the day. But here inside, the air is perfectly still. I let my shoulders drop. I let my hands uncurl. The journey is finished. The walking is done. The walls await me tomorrow. But the night belongs to this stillness. I listen to the quiet, letting it wash over me like a tide, until the sound of my own breath matches the distant rhythm of the water. The air before dawn holds a weight that the day never quite replicates. It is a heavy, cool stillness, smelling faintly of salt and ancient dampness. Outside the massive fortifications, the world is painted in shades of charcoal and deep indigo. The city sleeps behind its shield, a stone giant resting by the sea. To approach the pile gate at this hour is to walk into a painting that has not yet dried. The path leading toward the entrance is empty, save for the occasional flutter of a pigeon waking in the cypress trees. The trees themselves stand like dark sentinels, their needles absorbing the faint sound of my footsteps. Ahead, the drawbridge waits. It spans the dry moat, a wooden tongue extending from the mouth of the city. Stepping onto the timber planks changes the acoustic landscape entirely. The solid thud of the earth is replaced by a hollow, rhythmic creaking. The wood is thick, weathered by seasons of sun and rain, grooved by millions of crossings. Above the archway, the stone statue of the patron saint watches. He holds the model of the city in his hand, a miniature world of towers and walls, forever protecting the larger reality behind him. He is a silent greeter, carved from the same pale rock that forms the cliffs below. I pass beneath the outer arch. The temperature drops immediately. The stone walls are so thick they hold the night's cold long after the sun has risen. This acts as a sensory threshold, a cleansing of the modern world before entering the old. Inside the outer gate, the space contracts. It is a stone tunnel, curving slightly, designed to confuse invaders, but now serving only to amplify the sound of a lone walker. To the side, set deep into the masonry, lies the mechanism that once controlled the access to this sanctuary. I pause here to find the first anchor of the morning, the iron winch. It is a massive assembly of metal, blackened by age and grease. The wheel is large, taller than a man, with spokes that look heavy enough to crush bone. It sits in the shadows, a dormant beast of engineering. I lean in closer, not to touch, but to observe the texture of the iron. It is pitted and scarred, the surface uneven like the skin of an orange, but made of unforgiving metal. Beside the main wheel hang the counterweights. They are dense, pear-shaped masses of iron suspended by chains. The links of the chain are thick, each one the size of a hand. They hang perfectly still. There is no breeze here to sway them. They are frozen in a perpetual state of readiness, holding the memory of tension. I can almost hear the ghost of the strain, the groan of metal against metal that must have echoed here centuries ago when the bridge was raised at sunset. But now there is only silence. The iron is cold, radiating a chill that I can feel on my face. It is a grounding presence, a reminder of the physical effort required to keep this city safe. The mechanics are simple, brutal, and beautiful in their utility. Leaving the winch in its shadowed alcove, I continue through the inner gate. The tunnel slopes downward. The darkness is absolute for a moment, a brief eclipse before the path opens up. And then the city reveals itself. I step out of the shadow and onto the Stratton. It is breathtaking not because of its grandeur, though it is grand, but because of its emptiness. The main street stretches out in a perfect, straight line. A canyon of limestone flanked by uniform facades. In the height of day, this space is a river of people, a chaotic flow of voices and movement. Now it is a hall of mirrors. The street lamps are still on, casting a warm, amber glow that struggles against the incoming blue of the dawn. The light catches the pavement, revealing the second treasure of the morning. The limestone floor is not merely a street, it is a polished surface. Centuries of leather soles, sandals, and bare feet have buffed the white stone until it shines with the luster of marble. It is smooth, undulating slightly like the surface of a calm lake. I look down at my feet. The reflection of the street lamps is clear in the stone, elongated smears of gold stretching across the pale gray. It looks wet, as if a rainstorm has just passed, but the air is dry. This is the mirror-like finish, a testament to time and friction. It feels sacrilegious to walk on it with heavy boots, like stepping onto a ballroom floor in hiking gear. I begin to walk. This is the long valley of the morning. The street extends far ahead, terminating at the distant clock tower, which is currently just a silhouette against the lightening sky. I adjust my pace. There is no rush. The city belongs to me in this hour. My left foot slides forward, the heel making contact with the smooth stone. There is a soft clack, a sound that is crisp and distinct. It travels up the stone facades, bouncing gently between the buildings before fading into the upper stories. Right foot, clack. The rhythm establishes itself. It is a slow metronome, marking the passage of seconds in a timeless place. I let my gaze soften. I am not looking for details anymore. I am not reading the signs above the closed wooden shutters of the shops. I am not looking for the dates carved into the lintels. I am simply moving through the volume of the street. The air here is different than outside the walls. It is still, held in place by the tall buildings on either side. It feels stratified, cool at the ankles, slightly warmer at the face, where the heat from the stone buildings radiates outward. Step, slide, step. The limestone is not perfectly flat. It has gentle dips and rises, worn down in the center, where the traffic has been heaviest over the last 300 years. My feet find the path of least resistance, flowing into the shallow grooves worn by generations of walkers before me. It is a subtle guidance, the street itself suggesting where to place my weight. I focus entirely on the sensation of movement, the slight flex of the ankle, the shift of balance from one hip to the other, the swing of my arms, heavy and relaxed at my sides. The light is changing. The deep indigo above is softening to a pale violet. The amber streetlights seem to dim, not because they are losing power, but because the ambient light is growing stronger. The contrast lowers. The world is becoming a monochrome photograph, all grays and silvers and muted whites. Step, breath in. Step, breath out. There is a hypnotic quality to the uniformity of the buildings. Following the earthquake that leveled the city long ago, the law decreed that all houses on this street must be built in the same style, with the same height and the same windows. As I walk past them, they blur into a continuous ribbon of stone. Green shutters, closed tight against the night, punctuate the gray walls in a steady rhythm. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I listen to the silence behind my footsteps. It is a dense silence. It is not empty. It is full of sleeping potential. Behind those shutters, people are dreaming. In the narrow alleyways that branch off the main street like ribs from a spine, cats are stretching and yawning. But here in the center, there is only the long, smooth runway of stone. I walk for what feels like an hour, though it is likely only 10 minutes. The clock tower draws closer, but slowly, as if the street is expanding to keep me in this meditative state. The reflection in the stones beneath me shifts. The gold smears of the lamps are fading, replaced by the cool, milky reflection of the morning sky. The ground looks like a sheet of ice, pale and luminous. I keep my eyes on the horizon line where the street meets the sky. The bell tower stands tall, its metal cap catching the very first hint of direct sun, a tiny spark of pink light against the gray. The rhythm of the walk has become my heartbeat. I am no longer thinking about the destination. I am just a moving point in a stationary world. The friction of the sole against the limestone, the tiny vibrations traveling up through the leg, the cool air filling the lungs. Gradually, the trance begins to lift as I near the end of the thoroughfare. To my left, the wall of the Franciscan monastery rises, a severe and beautiful expanse of masonry. I stop. The silence rushes back in to fill the space where my footsteps were. I am looking for the mascarin. It is easy to miss. Most people walk past it without a second glance, seeing only a rough patch of wall. But I know it is here. I scan the lower section of the monastery wall near the ground. There it is. It is a small, grotesque head carved from stone, protruding from the vertical face of the wall, about knee height. It looks like a gargoyle that has lost its way, a strange, grimacing face with bulging eyes and a wide mouth. It was originally intended to carry water away from the roof, a humble drain. But time has turned it into a legend. The stone of the mascarin is darker than the surrounding wall, smooth and shiny from the touch of thousands of hands and feet. The top of the head is flat, creating a tiny, precarious ledge, no wider than the width of a shoe. I step closer. The legend is simple. If you can stand on this head, facing the wall, and take off your shirt without falling, you will find love, or luck, or perhaps just the satisfaction of balance. I do not attempt the feat. The morning is too quiet for such gymnastics. Instead, I simply place my hand on the stone head. It is cold, smooth as glass. I trace the curve of the bulging eye, the ridge of the brow. It feels solid, rooted deep into the structure of the monastery. It is a whimsical detail in a city of serious stone, a small wink from the past. Standing here, touching the cool stone face, I feel the scale of the wall towering above me. It goes up and up, blocking out the sky on this side. The stone is pitted with age, marked by the passage of centuries. Every inch of it has been washed by salt air and heated by the Adriatic sun. I withdraw my hand and step back. The masqueran remains, staring blankly across the street, waiting for the next traveler to test their balance. The light has shifted again. The pink spark on the bell tower has expanded, painting the upper third of the structure in a warm, rose gold hue. The sun has cleared the mountains. I look for a place to rest. Near the entrance to the Sponza Palace, there is a low stone bench, worn and inviting. I move toward it, the sound of my steps softer now, less echoing, as the day begins to absorb the acoustics. I sit. The stone of the bench is cool through my clothes, a refreshing chill. I lean back against the wall behind me. From this vantage point, I can look back down the length of the Stratton. The street I just walked is transforming. The mirror finish is losing its wet look as the direct light hits it, turning into a bright, dazzling white. The shadows of the buildings on the left are shrinking, retreating toward the walls as the sun claims the floor. A single pigeon lands in the center of the square. It bobs its head, cooing softly. The sound is gentle, a low warble that fits perfectly with the morning. I close my eyes for a moment, listening to the city wake up. Somewhere, in a cafe down one of the side streets, a metal shutter is rolled up. The sound is distant, a rumble like far-off thunder. Then the clinking of ceramic cups. The smell of coffee begins to drift on the air, faint but unmistakable, a dark, roasted scent that mingles with the salt. I open my eyes. The sky is now a clear, brilliant blue. The gray of the dawn has vanished completely. I watch the light crawl down the face of the church of St. Blaise. It moves like honey, thick and slow, illuminating the statues, the carvings, the heavy wooden doors. My breathing slows, matching the pace of the light. The urgency of the travel, the need to see and do, has evaporated. There is only this bench, this stone, and the sun warming the air. I rest my hands on my knees, feeling the fabric of my trousers, grounded and still. The day has officially begun, but for now, I remain in the quiet space between the dawn and the morning. The city is a theater that has just opened its curtains, and I am the only audience member in the front row, waiting for the first act to truly begin. The warmth of the sun reaches my face, and I let my head tip back against the wall, eyes drifting shut once more, letting the golden light filter through my eyelids in a soft, hazy glow. The morning light in Dubrovnik does not arrive all at once. It descends in layers, touching the red tiles of the rooftops first, then sliding down the cream-colored limestone walls, until finally it reaches the polished stones of the street. I am awake before the heat. The air holds a lingering coolness from the Adriatic, a salty freshness that settles in the narrow alleys. My movement through the city is slow. There is no rush to reach a destination, only a desire to be present in the stone corridors. I leave the heavy wooden door of my room and step out onto the Straton. At this hour, the limestone pavement shines like glass, reflecting the soft blue of the sky above. It is smooth from centuries of footsteps, a river of stone that flows straight through the heart of the old town. To my left, the Franciscan monastery waits. It is a fortress of silence amidst the stone. I step across the threshold, leaving the open street for the enclosed sanctuary of the lower cloister. The transition is acoustic as much as visual. The faint hum of the city vanishes, replaced by a stillness so profound it feels like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. Here, the world turns inward. The cloister is a square of perfect geometry, a garden enclosed by a covered walkway. Romanesque arches line the perimeter, supported by slender, double columns. I step into the corridor. The floor is paved with stone slabs that have been worn uneven by generations of monks and travelers. They are cool beneath my feet. My attention shifts to the columns. There are 120 of them, arranged in pairs, marching in a steady rhythm around the green heart of the garden. Each column is crowned with a capital, a block of stone carved with intricate detail. This is my first quiet purpose of the day, to see them, not just to glance, but to observe the shadows caught in the depth of the carvings. I begin at the corner. The first capital depicts a tangle of leaves. They are not stylized, rigid shapes, but fluid, curling fronds that seem to be growing out of the stone itself. The carver must have looked at the vegetation of this coast, at the wild herbs and vines, and transferred that chaotic life into the permanence of rock. I move to the next pair. Here, the leaves part to reveal a face. A small, weathered human face peers out from the foliage, its expression calm, perhaps a little amused. Moving down the line, the carvings shift. There are beasts here, winged creatures with long necks that intertwine, biting at their own tails in endless loops. The limestone is pale, almost white in the shadows, but where the sun strikes the outer edge of the arches, it turns the color of warm honey. I drift along the northern corridor. The repetition of the columns is hypnotic. One pair, then another, then another. No two capitals are exactly alike. One shows a man carrying a heavy load, his back bent, his legs braced against the weight. Another shows a geometric pattern of knots and braids, a puzzle without a solution. The craftsmanship is personal. I can see the marks of the chisel in the deeper grooves, the tiny imperfections that prove a human hand was here 600 years ago. The light changes as I turn the corner into the eastern walkway. The sun has climbed higher, and beams of light cut across the stone floor, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air. The shadows of the double columns stretch out long and thin, like fingers reaching toward the inner wall. I pause to look at a capital featuring a dragon. It is not a frightening monster, but a curvaceous, elegant creature nestled among stone grapes. The detail is extraordinary. I can see the scales on its back, the curve of its claw. It is a world in miniature, a story frozen in time. I linger here, letting my eyes trace the curve of the arch above the capitol. The stone is warm to the touch now, absorbing the mid-morning sun. In the center of the cloister, the garden is a burst of vibrant green against the pale architecture. Orange trees stand in neat rows, their leaves glossy and dark. I step off the paved walkway and sit on the low stone wall that separates the corridor from the earth. This is the place to rest. The silence here is not empty. It is a textured silence, filled with the very small sounds of the living garden. I settle my weight onto the stone ledge. It is wide and smooth, polished by centuries of people sitting just like this, seeking a moment of peace. My back rests against the column behind me. I let my gaze drop to the ground. The soil in the garden is dark and rich. A small bird, a sparrow, hops between the roots of an orange tree. It pecks at the ground, fluffs its feathers, and hops again. Its movements are quick and light. The air smells of citrus and damp earth. It is a scent that feels green and yellow, bright yet grounded. I breathe it in slowly. The rhythm of my breath aligns with the stillness of the courtyard. In, out, there is nothing to do here but exist. I watch the leaves of the nearest orange tree. There is a slight breeze, barely a whisper, that moves through the upper branches. The leaves tremble. They turn and shift, catching the sunlight on their waxy surfaces. One leaf dips, then rises, then another. It is a slow, rippling wave of motion that travels through the canopy. I close my eyes for a moment, listening. The fountain in the center of the garden is not roaring. It is trickling. The water sounds like glass beads falling onto a silver plate. Drip, splash, drip. It is a steady, metronomic sound that marks the passing of seconds without urgency. Opening my eyes, I focus on the shadows on the corridor floor. As the sun moves, the shadows of the columns shift. They are like the hands of a slow clock. I watch the edge of a shadow creep across a single flagstone. It takes a long time. It moves over a crack in the stone, fills the tiny crevice with darkness, and continues its journey toward the garden wall. The repetition of the arches creates a visual lullaby. Arch column, arch column. My eyes follow the line of the roof, the terracotta tiles glowing a deep, burnt orange against the blue square of sky framed by the buildings. The contrast is sharp and beautiful. I remain on the ledge. My hands rest in my lap, loose and relaxed. The tension of travel, the need to see and do, dissolves in this valley of quiet. I watch a small beetle navigate the terrain of a stone step. It moves with determination, climbing over a pebble, pausing, turning left. I watch it until it disappears into the greenery. The atmosphere is heavy with peace. It feels as though the air itself has mass, pressing gently against my skin, holding me in place. I listen to the distant, muffled sound of a bell tolling somewhere in the city. It is far away, a soft boom that vibrates in the air and then fades into nothing. Minutes stretch. I do not look at a watch. Time is measured only by the movement of the light and the slow drying of the dew on the grass. I breathe in the scent of the orange trees again. It is sweeter now, warmed by the sun. I lift my hand and brush it against the rough texture of the column beside me. The stone is pitted and grainy. It feels solid, permanent. It has stood here while empires rose and fell, while wars were fought, while the city changed around it. It is an anchor. The green of the garden is soothing to the eyes. I let my focus soften until the trees are just shapes of color, merging with the beige of the stone and the blue of the sky. It is a painting that breathes. I sit, I breathe, I wait. The world slows down until it matches the pace of the growing grass. Eventually, the urge to move returns, not as a demand, but as a gentle suggestion. I stand up slowly, feeling the stretch in my legs. I take one last look at the row of 120 capitals, the silent audience of stone faces and beasts, and turn toward the exit. Leaving the monastery, the light of the midday sun on the straton is brilliant. I navigate the flow of the street, drifting downstream toward the harbor end of the city. The sounds of conversation and footsteps wash over me, but I carry the silence of the cloister within me like a protective layer. At the end of the main street, the Sponza Palace rises. It is a different kind of stone creature. Where the monastery was a place of spirit, this was a place of commerce. The old customs house where goods were weighed and taxes were paid. I enter the tall archway. The atrium of the Sponza Palace is a soaring space. It is rectangular, open to the sky in the center, surrounded by elegant arcades on both the ground and the first floor. The acoustic here is sharper, brighter. My footsteps echo with a crisp click against the stone floor. The air inside is cool, trapped by the high walls. It feels like entering a canyon. I walk to the center of the atrium and look up. The sky is a perfect rectangle of azure, framed by the intricate stone balustrades of the upper gallery. I begin my search for the second detail of the day. I am looking for a specific carving, a Renaissance relief carved by a French master, hidden in the texture of the back wall. I move slowly past the arches of the ground floor. The columns here are different from the monastery. They are octagonal, sturdy, built to support the weight of gold, silk, and spices that once passed through these halls. I reach the rear wall of the atrium. The light here is diffuse, filtering down from the open roof. I scan the stonework. High up, set into the wall, I find it. 2 angels, carved with a delicacy that defies the hardness of the material. They are holding a medallion, a monogram surrounded by a wreath. I stand directly beneath it, tilting my head back. The carving is exquisite. The feathers of the angel's wings are rendered with such precision that they seem soft, ready to flutter. The drapery of their robes flows like water. It is a piece of grace in a building designed for business. Below the relief, I notice an inscription carved into the stone. The letters are Latin, deep and clear. It is the motto of the customs house. I trace the shape of the letters with my eyes. They speak of weights and measures. Our weights do not let us cheat, the stone says. When I weigh goods, God weighs me. The sentiment adds a heaviness to the room. I can almost imagine the wooden scales that once stood here, the sound of coins clinking, the smell of exotic spices from the east pepper, cloves, cinnamon mixing with the salt air. The space feels inhabited by the ghosts of merchants and scribes. I walk the perimeter of the atrium. The floor is patterned, dark stone framing lighter squares. I follow the lines, treating them like a path. The symmetry of the palace is pleasing. It is balanced, rational, a monument to order. I stop near one of the side arches. There is a wooden bench here, simple and worn. I sit down. The view from here captures the layers of the building, the sturdy arches of the ground floor, the delicate, lace-like windows of the first floor, and above that, the roofline meeting the sky. The light in the atrium begins to shift as the afternoon wears on. The rectangle of sunlight on the floor moves inch by inch toward the eastern wall. It turns the gray stone to gold where it touches. I close my eyes again, letting the acoustics of the sponza wash over me. A door opens and closes somewhere in the building. The sound resonates, bouncing off the hard surfaces, hanging in the air for a long moment before fading. It is a lonely sound, but not sad. It is simply the sound of a large, empty space. I think about the French carver who made the angels on the back wall. I wonder if he stood where I am standing, looking up at his work, checking the play of light on the stone wings. I wonder if he knew that centuries later, a traveler would come specifically to find it, to admire the shadow under a stone feather. The air in the palace is still. It is a stillness different from the garden. This is a stillness of stone and history, a preserved silence. I feel the coolness of the bench through my clothes. My hands rest on my knees. I am motionless, a part of the room's furniture. I watch a single dust mote float through a shaft of sunlight. It spirals upward, caught in a thermal current I cannot feel. It rises past the first floor balcony, up toward the open square of sky. I follow it until I lose it against the brightness of the clouds. The day is softening. The sharp edges of the shadows are beginning to blur. The white light of noon is giving way to the warmer, amber tones of late afternoon. I feel a deep sense of satisfaction. I have seen the 120 capitals. I have found the angels on the wall. I have sat in the green silence of the garden and the cool echo of the palace. I stand up, the movement slow and deliberate. My shoes make a soft, scuffing sound on the pavement. I walk toward the entrance of the sponza, toward the rectangle of light that marks the street. I do not go far. Just outside the palace, there is a stone step, wide and inviting. I sit there, leaning back against the wall of the customs house. From here, I can see the clock tower and the flow of people on the straton, but I am removed from it, an observer on the edge. The sun is dipping lower, casting long shadows across the plaza. The stone of the city begins to glow. This is the magic hour, when the limestone absorbs the sunset and radiates a soft, pinkish warmth. I watch the colors change. The blue of the sky deepens to indigo. The cream of the walls turns to apricot. I listen to the rhythm of the city. It is a hum, a collective breath of people walking, talking, living. But here, against the wall, it feels distant, like the sound of the ocean. I am tired in the good, heavy way that comes from slow observation. My eyes feel heavy, relaxed. I let my gaze drift out of focus, turning the passing figures into blurs of color. A red shirt, a white hat, a blue dress. They flow past like a river. The warmth of the wall seeps into my back. It is a comforting heat, stored up from the long day of sunshine. I settle deeper into the stone. There is no need to move, no need to to go anywhere else. The day is dissolving. The distinct shapes of the architecture are merging with the gathering dusk. The swallows have begun their evening flight, circling high above the square, their calls sharp and clear. I watch them weave patterns in the air, diving and climbing in the cooling sky. I take a deep breath, tasting the salt and the stone. The world feels solid and real. The goals of the day are met. The images of the carved leaves and the stone angels are safely stored in my mind. I let my hands rest on the stone step. The texture is familiar now. I close my eyes for just a second, then open them to watch the last sliver of direct sunlight fade from the top of the bell tower. The light lifts away, leaving the city in a soft twilight glow. The rhythm of the evening has begun. It is a slower, quieter rhythm. I am part of it. I sit on the step, watching the light fade, content to let the day drift into the memory of stone. The morning air above the city does not feel like air at all, but rather like a suspended ocean of clear, cool light. It rests heavy and still against the limestone, waiting for the sun to crest the hills and turn the atmosphere into gold. I have risen before the heat, seeking the highest point of the ramparts, where the northern defenses tower over the grid of red roofs below. This is the start of the ascent toward the Minchetta Tower, the crown of the stone system that wraps this place in a protective embrace. The stairs here are steep, cut from the same white rock that forms the cliffs plunging into the Adriatic. My boots find purchase on the uneven surface, the leather soles gripping the stone that has been polished by centuries of patrolmen, merchants, and wanderers. There is a specific rhythm to climbing these fortifications. It is a slow, measured cadence that matches the beat of the heart. Lift, place, press. The sound of my own movement is the only disturbance in the quiet. To my left, the city sleeps in a haze of shadows. To my right, the land rises sharply, the slopes covered in cypress trees and scrub brush that smell of dried pine needles and dust. As the elevation increases, the perspective shifts. The streets below become narrow canyons, and the sounds of the waking town drift up in fragments. A church bell tolls, the sound dull and resonant, vibrating through the soles of my feet before fading into the vastness of the sky. I reach a section of the wall where the masonry changes. The stones here are massive, irregular blocks fitted together with a precision that defies the erosion of time. This is the defensive shell, built to withstand cannon fire and the relentless assault of the seasons. But there is a secret hidden in this chaotic patchwork of rock. I slow my pace, letting my eyes trace the surface of the wall at waist height. The texture is rough, pitted by salt and wind, but here and there, the pattern is interrupted by something smooth, something intentional, My fingers brush against a block of stone that feels different. It is not a rough-hewn boulder, but a slab of marble, repurposed from an older life. I lean in closer, squinting against the brightening sky. There are lines carved into the surface, faint vertical strokes, a curve, a sharp angle. They are letters. This is a tombstone, a fragment of a life lived long before the walls were raised to their current height. In the urgency of fortification, the builders took whatever stone was strong enough to hold back the enemy. They took the markers of the dead and wove them into the shield of the living. I trace the inscription, though the words are lost to the friction of history. The indentation of a Roman letter, perhaps an E or an F, rests cool under my fingertip. It is a strange, silent intimacy. I am touching a memorial that was dismantled and submerged into a greater purpose. The name is gone, the date is erased, but the strength of the stone remains, holding up the walkway on which I stand. Moving further along the northern perimeter, the wind begins to pick up. It is a clean, sharp breeze coming off the mountains, carrying the scent of sage and wild thyme. The Minchetta Tower looms ahead, a formidable cylinder of stone that anchors the northwest corner of the city. It does not just sit on the ground, it seems to erupt from it, a geological extension of the earth itself. At the base of the tower, the wall widens. The space feels secure, enclosed by the high parapets. I step into the shadow of the tower, enjoying the sudden drop in temperature. The stone here breathes a deep, earthen coldness it has hoarded during the night. The view from this vantage point is a tapestry of terracotta. Thousands of tiles, each one a slightly different shade of orange, red, or brown, ripple out toward the sea. They look like the scales of a great, sleeping beast. Swallows dive and weave between the chimneys, their sharp, chirping calls echoing off the hard surfaces. They are the true owners of this altitude, masters of the air currents that swirl around the stone giants. I lean against the merlons, the notched battlements that line the edge of the wall. The stone is waist-high and wide enough to rest my arms upon. Below, the drop is dizzying, a vertical plunge into the dry moat and the gardens beyond. But up here, there is only stability. The wall is a solid, unmoving fact. My gaze follows the curve of the fortifications as they wind their way downhill toward the harbor. That is my path, a long, descending ribbon of limestone that connects the high ground to the water. I turn away from the tower and begin the descent. The stairs here are broad and shallow, designed to allow the movement of heavy equipment and hurried soldiers. Now they serve only the slow, meditative pace of the morning. The sun has cleared the hills. The light strikes the walls with a physical force, warming the air instantly. The white stone reflects the brilliance, creating a luminous envelope that feels almost liquid. I lower my head slightly, letting the brim of my hat shield my eyes, and surrender to the rhythm of the walk. This is the long valley of motion. One foot extends, the heel striking the pavement with a soft, dull thud. The weight transfers, the arch of the foot flattening, the toes pushing off for the next step. It is a cycle that requires no thought, a mechanical loop that frees the mind to float. The path stretches out, a pale gray road suspended between the sky and the city. There are no obstacles here, no intersections, just the continuous flowing line of the ramparts. I listen to the sound of my own breathing. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. The air is warming, thickening with the humidity rising from the sea. But up here, the breeze keeps it moving. It brushes against my skin, a gentle, constant friction that reminds me of the height. Step, step, step. The texture of the ground changes subtly beneath me. Sometimes it is large, flat flagstones, cool and smooth. Other times, it is brick, laid in a herringbone pattern that vibrates slightly under the soles. Occasionally, it is gravel and packed earth, crunching softly, a sound that evokes memories of garden paths and country lanes. To my left, the rooftops glide by. I am walking level with the attic windows, seeing the city from a private, elevated angle. I see laundry drying on lines strung between dormers, white sheets billowing like sails. I see flower pots balanced on sills, geraniums bursting with red blooms against the peeling green paint of shutters. But I do not stop to analyze them. They are just colors and shapes, passing by in the periphery of my vision. The focus remains on the movement, the steady, hypnotic descent. The wall curves gently to the east, following the contours of the land. The angle of the sun shifts, warming my back, then my right shoulder. The heat is pleasant, a heavy blanket that settles over the muscles, loosening the tension of the climb. I pass a series of small guardhouses, empty stone shells that once sheltered sentries from the rain. They are dark inside, squares of shadow in the brightness of the morning. I do not enter them. I keep moving, carried by the momentum of the slope. The sound of the city changes as I descend. The sharp, distinct noises of the heights, the birds, the wind begin to blend with the hum of the streets below. Voices, footsteps, the clatter of carts. But they are distant, muffled by the mass of the wall. I am in the city, but not of it. I am in a separate channel, a river of stone flowing parallel to the life below. The walkway narrows. The stones here are worn deeper in the center, concave depressions that hold the memory of millions of footsteps. My own feet settle into these hollows naturally, guided by the ghosts of the past. It is a comforting sensation, this alignment with those who have walked here before. I watch the shadow of the parapet slide across the path. It is a sharp, black line that moves imperceptibly with the sun. It divides the walkway into zones of light and dark. I step from one to the other, feeling the subtle difference in temperature on my skin. The descent continues, a long, straight stretch now, flanked by high walls on both sides. It feels like a corridor, a tunnel with the roof removed. The sky above is a strip of intense, saturated blue. My breathing slows further. The exertion of the climb has faded, replaced by a steady, low-level hum of energy. The body is a pendulum, swinging efficiently through space. There is no destination in the mind, only the next stone, the next breath, the next moment of contact with the ground. The visual field is filled with the textures of the masonry. The mortar is gray and gritty, speckled with bits of crushed shell and dark sand. The stones are white, cream beige, sometimes streaked with iron rust or gray lichen. It is a landscape of miniatures, a whole world of geology passing by at walking speed. I reach a corner where the wall turns sharply toward the sea. The air changes instantly. The smell of pine and dust vanishes, replaced by the heavy, brine-laden scent of the Adriatic. The sound of the water rises up to meet me, a rhythmic shushing of waves against the rocks, a sound that is older than the walls, older than the stone, older than the concept of time itself. The long walk of the valley ends as the path levels out near the harbor. The transition is soft. The downward pull of gravity ceases, and I am walking on flat ground again. The muscles in my legs adjust. The cadence shifts. I am approaching the fortress of St. John. It stands guard over the harbor entrance, a massive, rounded structure that feels less like a building and more like a man-made cliff. The stone here is darker, stained by centuries of sea spray and storms. I move toward the outer edge of the fortress, where the walls drop straight down into the deep water. The harbor is opening up before me. The enclosed intimacy of the northern walls is replaced by the vast, open horizon of the sea. Boats bob in the protected water of the port. Small fishing vessels with painted wooden hulls, white sailboats with their masts clanking gently in the swell, and ferries waiting to shuttle passengers to the islands. The water is a kaleidoscope of greens and blues, emerald near the edges, deepening to sapphire, and finally a dark, opaque navy in the center of the channel. I am looking for a specific point in the landscape. I am looking for the memory of the Great Chain. Centuries ago, to protect the harbor from unwanted ships, a massive iron chain was stretched across the mouth of the port every night. It was a heavy, formidable barrier, raised by winches and anchored into the living rock of the fortress. I walk slowly along the water-facing rampart. I am scanning the stone near the waterline. and the heavy blocks that form the corner of the fortress. I am not looking for the chain itself. That is long gone, melted down or lost to the silt of the harbor floor. I am looking for the anchor point, the scar. I find a place where the stone has been worked differently. A large iron ring, thick with rust and pitted by salt, is embedded into a block of limestone near the base of the wall. It is too high to be a mooring for a small boat. It is massive, industrial in its scale. I lean over the parapet, gazing down at the iron. It looks like a closed eye. I imagine the weight of the chain that once hung here, the sound of it dragging across the stone as it was winched up at twilight, the groan of the metal links straining against their own weight, the splash as it was lowered at dawn, allowing the commerce of the city to flow once more. I move away from the edge and find a place to sit on a low stone bench built into the interior of the fortress wall. The stone is warm, absorbing the mid-morning sun. From here, I can see the mouth of the harbor, the gap between the fortress and the breakwater where the chain would have spanned. Now the water is open. A small boat chugs slowly through the gap, its engine leaving a trail of white foam that dissolves into the blue. The air here is heavy and slow. The humidity from the water creates a soft haze that blurs the line between the sea and the sky. The sounds of the harbor are drowsy and repetitive. The slap of water against the hulls, the creak of wood, the distant cry of a gull. I watch the light play on the surface of the water. It is hypnotic, a ceaseless, shimmering dance of diamonds. The reflections bounce up and cast rippling patterns of light onto the underside of the stone arches nearby. The fortress, so solid and heavy, seems to float on this bed of light. My eyes trace the horizon. It is a straight, unwavering line. It separates the known world of the solid ground from the infinite possibility of the sea. I rest my hands on my knees. The rough fabric of my trousers feels distinct against my palms. I can feel the pulse in my fingertips, a slow, steady throb that matches the lazy movement of the water below. The intensity of the visual world begins to soften. The sharp edges of the fortress walls seem to round off, blending into the blue of the sky. The bright colors of the boats mute into gentle pastels. There is no need to move. The walk is done. The search is over. The chain is gone, but the harbor is safe, held in the cupped hands of the stone breakwater. I let my gaze drift out past the boats, past the fortress, past the island of Lochram, lying green and silent in the distance. I focus on the empty space where the sea meets the sky, a place of pure, uninterrupted blue. The warmth of the sun is a weight on my eyelids. It presses down gently, inviting them to close. The sounds of the harbor stretch out, becoming longer, slower, like a record losing its speed. The slap of the water becomes a heartbeat. The cry of the gull becomes a whisper. I lean back against the warm stone of the fortress wall. It supports me completely. There is nothing left to climb, nothing left to find. The light begins to fade, not because the sun is setting, but because the mind is retreating, pulling back from the bright surface of the world into the quiet, dark interior of rest. The rhythm of the waves syncs with the rhythm of my breath. In, out, rise, fall. The stone holds the heat. The air holds the salt. The silence holds the moment. I let the scene dissolve, the blue turning to gray, the gray turning to a soft, enveloping darkness that feels like the velvet of the night. The harbor waits, the water waits, and I drift